This area of the state was the most productive area and had the highest population west of the Mississippi early on, before the turn of the century. It attracted farmers who plowed up the prairie. It attracted people who wanted to make their living off of farmers. And the big markets developed in Dallas, Waco, Austin, San Antonio, all up and down the Blackland Prairie. The railroad ran through this area. There was a lot of development, a lot of influx of population, and it was just so productive that people wanted to plow up everything they could get a plow to. And most of the farmers then had some kind of livestock because they depended upon them for food themselves, and so whatever was not plowed up was grazed, and overgrazed generally.
I guess the sad thing is that there's probably less than 0.1% of the Blackland Prairie still exists in the prairie. That's counting all the little, if you push together all the little cemeteries and strips along old railroad rights-of-ways and corners left in fields and things like that.
5-acre hay meadows.
5-acre, 10-acre hay meadows. If you push all those together, you got less than 0.1%. So it's the single most endangered ecosystem left in Texas. And the truth is, short of certain areas in North Texas, there's no way to have a prairie like the Blackland Prairie unless you remake it. And that's why we decided to build one. And this is part of it here. There's about 70 acres here, and we've got probably another 200 acres over there near our house in an earlier stage of succession. But gradually we're bringing more and more of the farm into prairie. And it involves, like you saw when you were at the house, you saw all those seeds we had collected this spring. We'll plant all those in the prairie in early fall.
And we have had many groups out here, school children, scout groups, SCS tours, academics, conservation groups, and the children who come out here are so amusing in a way, and they also tell us something about their generation, because when they step out of their car, they will look out here and they'll say, "Do we have to walk out in those weeds? But there are bugs out there. There's snakes out there. There's stickery things." And so we just tell them, yes, we're going to walk out in the weeds, and they very gingerly step out into the prairie. And after about 15 minutes, especially by the time we get to the bottom where the grass is over their heads, they are romping, jumping around, building nests in this tall grass that's way over their heads, and just having a ball. But their initial reticence is very dramatic, and it's nearly always the same. They've grown up in town, they've been on concrete or mowed lawns, and this is kind of a scary new experience for them.
So what we did is everybody got their bed and they plot. And this is theirs as long as they want to keep it. If they decide they get tired of gardening, well, then they can just go ahead and say, well, I'm tired. You can give this plot to somebody else. And then we can take it and give it to one of the other neighbors across the street that are interested in gardening. But the garden is down here. I like to bring this to your attention. We have what we call Shape Center right around the corner.
Yeah.
Shape Center is involved with a lot of kids. And last year what he did, he had 2 groups of kids coming over, one in the morning and one in the evening. And he would bring approximately 28 kids in the morning, and in the afternoon he'd bring approximately 26 to 25, 26 kids over here.
Okay.
And what they done, they would clean the bed, and they had an instructor from Irvis Harvest, and they would teach them how to plant. A lady named Ms. Lola, which is one of the best and the greatest in this field of work. She taught them how to plant. And they had a good success. They planted a lot of carrots and collard greens and mustard greens. And then they picked them all one day and took them to the Shape Center and they sold them. Just for them to get a little extra cash to go buy more seeds and things for the next year.
I see.
So it worked out real well for them, you know.
And are they learning something about farming and gardening?
They are learning about gardening. We're talking about kids now from the age of 8 to 14. When you catch a kid between 8 and 14 years old and they get interested in gardening, that's interesting because most kids don't want to garden. They don't like to get their hands dirty. Or they think the little girls don't want the little dirt under their nails. Yes. But we have a lot of girls over here from Shape, and they didn't mind it at all. Once they got to playing in the dirt, they began to like it. When they first came here, it was a plaything for them. They came here and they wanted to run up and down the fields and say, look, what is this here? What are we going to do here? You know, and they would even get some of the dirt and throw it at each other's. But Miss Lola, remember I told you, she's one of the great persons, but she's going to be a mean person. Yeah. So she's, hold it, this is not the way we garden. We don't garden by plan. So she set them all down. Then she explained to them about growing. She said, to grow, you have to work. When you work, then you'll see your productions. So what we're going to do is let's pull all the grass out of this one bed right here. And when they pull all the bed out of this one bed, then she cultivated, got a rake and showed them how to start, and then she gave it to them. Let me see you do it. And they cultivated the bed up and everything. And then she come back, she said, now we're going to plant. And she had showed them how to put a little hole in the ground, how to put the seed in, how to cover it up, and then how to wet the bed down. And that was the beginning for the little kids at Shape Center here at Alabama Community Garden and Planting. And like I said, they had a success behind it, you know.
This is a native yucca, or Spanish dagger, some people call it. And this is a really fascinating plant because these little flowers are edible. You can take the leaves and you can put them in casseroles, in soups. You can pretty much substitute them for onions whenever you're cooking. You just take the leaves, cut them up, and use them like onions. You can put them in salads. They have kind of like a mild radish taste to them. In a couple of weeks, this little pistil where the seeds are will start to enlarge, and it'll get about, well, it gets bigger, but when it's maybe twice the size, you can cut it and you can eat it like a cucumber. It has a cucumbery taste. As it grows and matures, it gets hard and woody and very green, and it's no longer edible. But we'll wait until the end of summer and it will turn into a blackish blue, and it gets real gooey, and it starts to collapse because it's real ripe. And again, it becomes edible. You just collect the whole seed pod. You brush off the ants because ants are really into the sugar. And you put it in your mouth and you chew, and you remove the fiber in the seeds because it has real hard seeds. And it's very, 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 very sweet. The leaves were used by the indigenous people to weave baskets. They're real hard. I don't know if I can cut it. But you would just cut little strands of it. You would take the whole leaf and just cut it into, this long strands. You would put it in a fire first, and it would make it real soft. And then after you get it fired and it's very soft, almost like a rope, then you just tie a simple knot, like so. And then you have a piece of string. If you need a rope, you would tie 2 or 3 together, and the length of the rope depends on however long you need it. You're in an emergency, you're lost, you need a little shelter, you don't have any rope or string, you got all the rope and string you need. We're out here 2 or 3 days, we're starting to smell because we haven't taken a shower. We would then take a rock and we would dig some of the root. We would cut it up. We would put it in a little canteen or something with water. Excuse me. It would make an excellent shampoo. So you could shampoo your hair and would wash your clothes. At the same time, when we eat all the blossoms, it would remain this long stalk with its short branches would stay there. We would then cut the stalk. We would build a little fire and we would roast it and we would eat it like sugar cane. It's a real sweet taste and has lots of vitamins and minerals, typically vitamin A, vitamin C, vitamin D, and some of the simple sugars. So it's a very, very, very useful plant. It's a local yucca, our native yucca that we have.
Talking about the decay cycle as being one of the natural processes that we have to work with in nature if we're going to be sustainable. The dung beetle that has buried part of this manure pile and brought the dirt up through it, incidentally, there'll be enough farmers and ranchers in your audience that'll say that old boy is a very poor manager, simply because this manure is very fibrous, and they're absolutely correct. I was holding cattle on this particular area to utilize some old grass simply because we had to. We didn't have a choice with the drought. But can you see the life in that manure? You see the little grub worms working it? See them? Well, you get them right there, the little worms. This is a part of the normal natural decay cycle. It is what has to happen. Everything from the little fly larva right here to this little worm over here, whatever he is, the dung beetle, later on the earthworm will come up under it. The pill bugs will begin to utilize it. They will convert this waste product back into nutrients. Nutrients for soil organisms, and later on, nutrients for higher plants, which will in turn be converted into nutrients for animals. Life, death, decay. It's a never-ending cycle. And when you interrupt that cycle with something like the chemicals that sterilize this dung pat in order to keep horn flies from hatching in it, then we kill all of the life forms in that dung pat. We interrupt that cycle. Therefore, we waste these nutrients that are tied up in this manure. Instead of going back into the soil immediately to become food for microorganisms, later food for higher plants, later food for animals, it's a waste product. This is one of the things that we've lost touch with in modern agriculture. We have to work within nature's framework. We can push on nature occasionally. We can violate the rules occasionally, but sooner or later it catches up with us. If the manure stays on the land, it is an asset. It is the source of new life in the microorganisms, in the plants, in the animals. We had best rethink our methods of agriculture if we don't want to follow the anesthesia. That sounds maybe a little far-fetched, but I can take you to places that as a boy I knew as virgin prairie that today I can't bury the blade of this pocket knife in the soil, even though the soil is 10 feet deep, because it is so devoid of life that it's just like concrete. We have lost the life in that soil, and therefore we've lost the productivity in that soil in 40 years.